Mm.
Welcome back to another week of Word of Mouth. This is discussing mental health, relationship goals, relationships in general, family, etc., etc., etc. We know the spiel by now. So this week we're gonna be going into a TV show, an old TV show, actually one of my favorites, The Game. Not the rapper, although he's one of my favorite rappers. It was a series that was on the CW network. It went over the life and times of a famous football athlete, Derwin Davis, and Melanie Barnett, I think her last name was. I just know her first name. The actors are Pooch Hall and Tamira Mari. She was on The Real. She just left that. Pooch Hall hasn't really done anything, as far as I know, outside of this TV show. So, in the series, they go over basically, Derwin Davis was drafted to this team out in, I think, San Diego or San Francisco, something like that, just for the sake of argument. And he brought his longtime girlfriend with him, college sweetheart with him. And they just had their trials and tribulations. They wound up being together, happily ever after, etc., etc., for those who haven't watched it. But we're going to discuss all the things that happened in the show, because it was a long road for them. So they originally moved in. She gave up the school, John Hopkins, for him. Now, if you haven't watched the show, I think for like the first season, maybe even up into the second season, she just brought up her giving up John Hopkins a lot for him. She brought it up heavily. And I get you might be a little resentment for that, but that was the decision you made, and nobody could have made you make that decision, but you wanted to make it on your own. So, and on top of that, brings it to the first point. He paid for her to get through medical school. Medical school is very expensive. So you gave up a school, cool, you gave up the scholarship, but he paid for everything. So it's kind of like, I get you traded off for John Hopkins, but when it comes to the medical field, they're all very stringent. As somebody who's in the medical field now, and wife is in the medical field, there's really not a school you can't go to that you can't get a good medical job with experience and all the other stuff. That's just how the medical field is. It's very stringent regardless of where you go. To say you got Princeton or Yale or John Hopkins or wherever else on your resume is cool and all, but at the same time, that's a hands-on experience. That's a hands-on job. So it's great if you can take a test, but if you get shook at the sight of blood, you're kind of useless. You're not even kind of useless, you are useless. So let's go with the beginnings. Wasn't supportive of his career at all. That's debatable on account of she did move out there on the trust of him, and he could have just said bye and left her high and dry. Granted, her family was well off, but he could have done that. So I won't give him that point. A second point is hung out with Trey Wiggs. That was his rival. Even though Derwin asked her not to because it would make him look bad. Derwin woke up to see him too on the front page of the local paper with dating rumors in the middle of his underperformance rookie season. Very embarrassing. That is something that people need to understand about being in a relationship or whatnot, is just the fact, like, men or women, you may not think nothing of a situation or may look at somebody as a friend or whatnot, but that person may not look at you as that, especially if they feel like they should have you or want you, because that can end up really bad. And it did. She wound up sleeping with him one time after he cheated on her, because Derwin did cheat on her, and cheating is never right, but it was kind of warranted. He should have just broke up with her and like just paid for the rest of her medical school and moved on with his life. But yeah, I remember that episode. He was on the front page paper and she just looked like a groupie, and she was with him, and he said, I don't think it's a good idea for y'all to be hanging out like that. And that guy Trey, he knew that was going to be a bad idea, but didn't care. He knew what it would look like and what it would do. It was his ideology to, I guess, quote unquote, steal Melanie from Derwin. Another thing, this was very toxic and very manipulative. She said she couldn't go to road games because she had to study. But when she found out women would be there, she suddenly found the free time to get a plane ticket and hide in his hotel closet. Very bad. If you didn't have the time before, how do you make the time again? So it's kind of like you didn't. So I guess you can go into wasn't supportive of his career. Like you can kind of put that hand in hand, because now she felt threatened by her spot because groupies would be in his room, which is something I've heard a lot from athletes and whatnot. I know a couple of professional athletes that say, groupies somehow get in their room, or they somehow get backstage, or they somehow get this place and that place. So it's not a far-fetched idea to think that, they don't get to these places and do what they, and whatnot. But it was like, and it's not to say she couldn't go to every away game, but, there's 1 or 2 out of a season. What, a football season is 12 games? I'll assume 12 games. I don't know. I'm a basketball guy more so I know there's 82 games in that. But, so you could have made 1 or 2 away games. It's not that big of a deal. He understood you were studying, but between a plane ticket and everything else, there's plenty of time to study or at least listen to stuff. She said no to his marriage proposal, and then saying he got a new contract with way more money and asked him to repropose. That, I'm a firm believer. Once I propose once, I'm not proposing again. So, yeah, that I remember that. I forgot about that, but it was like now he got this contract for more money, and it made her look very gold diggerish. And I think this is the part when that singer Drew Sidora came around and she was on the rise. And personally, I think he should have just left her alone and went with Drew. I think they made a better couple, but that's me. That's what I felt about it, because that was terrible when she did that. It was like his contract wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst. So it was manageable. It could have made money, and he could have, ventured into other things after football. But it was the fact that how she did that. That was terrible, and he was a good one for even dealing with her. Moved on and had her new boyfriend fight him in a bathroom stall and almost ruined his career. Remember that. She definitely did that out of pettiness. And tried to do that pettiness stuff before, and he should have left her alone for that too, because that shit was the most pettiest thing in the world. Came back once Derwin found happiness in a family, but was jealous that he gave someone else the baby that she wanted, and she went behind his back to get his child tested. I remember that. She had him swabbed and did that. She had him swabbed, the baby swabbed, to make sure it was his baby after it was born. They were married at that time period, but I remember when she did that, because that was terrible too. It was just like very toxic behavior all around. When the results came back positive, she tried to move up their wedding date to be first because it was his child. Remember that as well. She wanted to come first. She felt very spoiled, very rotten about it. But the reason he even had that child is because, he cheated, which was wrong. It definitely was wrong. But he didn't cheat until after the marriage proposal thing. And they forgot a point where he was upset. He was upset with her. And she was naked. She was naked in the house, and all his friends saw when he came home. Tried to do something sweet and sexy for him. Granted, it was an accident, but it was out of character for her. She should have known. Like, it just wasn't something, you didn't care to see it. So it was like, why'd you do that? Another thing I remember her doing was, what was it? She tried to sleep with Malik because she felt bad because Darren didn't want her no more. That was very vengeful of her. She tried to do that, and they were football teammates. Malik said no to it, and then his mom kicked her out for it. But she tried to do that as well, which was wrong. And I went over these things because a lot of men go through these things. Like, if you really it shouldn't be a tally or a pros and cons list. But when you tally up what you're doing for somebody and there's more pros to cons of you being with them, you need to leave them alone too, because she really wasn't pulling her weight at all. It didn't take much. Essentially she was just a housewife. Or a trophy girlfriend, whatever you want to call it. She was just one of those things. It would have been nothing for you to stay home, cook, and make sure the house was clean. That's it. And you could have went shopping. You could have did whatever you liked. And he didn't care. You also had your own family money. but she made it a very difficult road for him for a very long time. So when he cheated, I couldn't feel bad for her, because it was like he was essentially a good guy, and she almost ruined that through her own insecurities and jealousy and resentment for whatever reason or another. So that's all I have for this week. Like and subscribe to the channel. This is Word of Mouth. Peace.
Mm.